poison. In this case, it's poison. Basically, they are being injected with a serum that is causing him or her pain, and they will carry that for the rest of their lives.
The rest of their life,
And
yes.
this isn't something that goes away. This carries on into their children, because there's also research about this where if a child has been alienated from their parent, they too will do the same thing if they have a child. Or fathers out there who have been divorced recently, you have to be prepared mentally, physically, emotionally, you name it. You have to be prepared, because it's going to be tough. Don't think it's going to be easy. I was definitely feeling like I was let down by the system. And instead, I wanted to somewhat feel supported by anything or anyone. I just had a sense of abandonment from everything, really. I've felt this throughout the whole, marriage, literally being, like they say, under the thumb, or the other person's wearing the pants. And, you hear all these little terms, but really they are red flags. And
the child itself is the nuclear option that they use to damage you, demonize you the rest of your life. Right, good evening. Welcome to Disqualified Dads. This is my first sort of Zoom podcast. I'm not a big fan of it. Personally, you know me, Faz, I like to do in person here in the UK, but it's difficult considering where you are, which you will tell us in a minute. It is very difficult. Hence, we are here via Zoom. Now, tonight I have a very special guest all the way from the USA. And guess what? His name is Farouk as well. Farouk, introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your channel.
Sure, no problem. First of all, thanks for having me on your show. I've heard a lot about disqualified dads. Obviously, I'm one of them, so I can definitely resonate with the channel and the power of the message that you're trying to bring across to the platform, and many other platforms, in fact. I initially found you on TikTok and obviously YouTube. So, I appreciate what you do, first and foremost. So, yeah, my name's Farouk. I was initially living in the UK, and due to unforeseen circumstances, call them what you will, I basically jumped ship, got on a boat, and I'm on the other side. Nah, it wasn't a boat, really. I'm kidding. It was, I can laugh about it now, but if you asked me 8 years ago, it wouldn't be as it is now. So we have to bring a light to these kind of conversations, because they can really bring a person down. So I'll go into a bit of that. But yeah, that's my intro, and I do have a podcast. And I feel like whenever we go through these specific journeys in our lives, we tend to want to reach out to other people, see if they are going through what we're going through. Yeah, and I think that also is a trauma response. Am I lonely in this? And you find out that there's millions of fathers out there who are going through similar. So we aren't alone. And it's refreshing to hear various stories, which is why I come onto these kind of podcasts just to see what's going on, and I guess gain a different perspective. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Well, look, I just want to say this. Farouk, welcome to the channel, first and foremost. Right. Obviously, before we continue, do you want to give us a name of your channel, just to put it out there? What's the name of your channel, so if there's any viewers that can follow and subscribe and watch some of your content?
So it is actually, we recently changed it because we're going through a complete rebrand, and it was like the official TME podcaster, but now it's the Peace Movement Podcast. So it's, I guess, evolving as I evolve as a person, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And the journey of this podcast has been amazing. And that's where I'm at with the podcast right now. We are rebranding, so stay tuned.
All right, Farouk, so tell us, I mean, obviously, we're going to be talking about family court, being a disqualified dad yourself, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Was it being a disqualified dad that sort of made you decide to jump ship, leave sunny England, Specifically, if I remember correctly, up north, you were from a northern town.
Yeah, northern town, northwest of England.
Northwest of England, Blackburn boy, jumped ship all the way to the
Exactly.
USA. So tell us, if you don't, obviously, if you want to, if you're happy to talk about it, was it because you became a disqualified dad that made you decide that you want to get out of it? Because I sort of understand that feeling a little bit, and I think that myself sometimes.
Yeah. So I would say that is definitely one of the reasons. That is a definitely a big factor in one of my decisions, because I feel like being born into you know, from England, born and bred, and growing up on those streets, and just having a whole life of filled with memories, good memories as well, with my family growing up, etc. And then transitioning into what we could deem as married life. And it's a scary place to be in, just for anyone.
Hmm.
And you just don't know what to expect. And especially whenever you go through these kind of things, it definitely gives you a wake-up call. It makes you realize what is actually going on out there. And I'll be honest with you, I was definitely feeling like I was let down by the system. And instead, I wanted to somewhat feel supported by anything or anyone. I just had a sense of abandonment from everything, really, in my beliefs, in anything of what life should be like. And it really changed a lot of things in me. And one of the biggest decisions to move across the pond, as we say, it wasn't easy. It didn't come easy to me. And I feel like even though I live here, I still try to go once a year. This year I went twice a year, and in to try to gain some sort of relationship with my child, with my son. And it's a forever battle. And I know a lot of fathers out there are going through the same thing. It's very difficult to do that, whether you are a virtual parent, and even physical parents, if they are in the same country, they are feeling the same thing as that, as I want to call it, alienation. And this is starting to come more and more into our societies. People are starting to realize what parental alienation is. And it only kind of came to light, say, 20 years ago. I've been researching on this and try to understand what that's all about. And I'll go more into this, but yeah,
Right,
let's,
brother, let's slow down. Yeah,
yeah,
you've covered
sure,
Blackburn, growing up, marriage, potentially being divorced. You've covered so much in just that. So let's slow down. We've
sure.
got a bit of time. Let's just slow it down. We're gonna do it piece by piece now, yeah?
Got it.
Now, what's my chain of thought again? Right. So let's start with marriage because this is the first thing you covered. And listen, I just want to add something to your final point. Listen, you're talking about a virtual relationship with your child. My child's less than a mile up the road. I ain't seen him for 2 years. I
Yeah,
spoke to them. So
right.
virtual, what chance you got really? Yeah. That's the
Yeah,
system we live in, bro. So look, let's strip it back. So you grew up
exactly.
in Blackburn, northern town. I originally, I don't know if you remember, but I was born and raised in Preston myself, Lancashire. Shout out
Yeah,
to Lancashire, big up all of those northern towns. Now, when you grow up in that community in the 80s, it is a different world, it's a different life to what it is now. To be
yeah,
fair, it is a very different environment to even if you grew up in London, let alone, moving to the USA, yeah? So you've grown up in that small northern South Asian community, got mosques nearby, played on the streets.
yeah,
As you grew up, from what I'm gathering from what you're saying is you've grown up, you're conditioned by your environment. So
mhm,
you had this sense of community, belonging, and what it sounds like what you're saying is you got married, and once you got married, marriage, either you didn't have any knowledge or experience or understanding of the magnitude of that relationship or how to conduct it, or it's not what you expected, or it's not what you deemed it to be, or it was just a big disappointment. So just tell us, if you don't mind talking, let's just go into a little bit of that. What were you expecting from marriage? What was your perception of marriage? And what did it not turn out to be for you?
right. That's a very good question. And I think it's important to emphasize that when you are at that age where we're talking about cultural, that you're expected to, okay, go into full-time education. Once you've almost completed that, or even sometimes during your education, there's always that pressure there. And I'll be honest with you, with my family, I didn't feel that.
Hmm.
I just kind of like basically worked a lot of hours and, just, focused on some of the education aspect of it, but working and just trying to build up an independence. And so, moving forward with regards to the marriage aspect of it, I think it's scary because you don't really know what you're getting yourself in for. You might have that conversation with an adult in their family, like, hey, make sure you're taking care of uh, your money, or making sure that you're sticking to the values of what marriage should be like, being fair,
No one tells you what it
instilling.
actually. They tell you everything other than what it actually is.
Right.
That's what I
Yeah.
found. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what it is. So like you're literally plunged into a world that is unknown to you. And then on top of that, you've got someone who, you're now living with. And it's like, okay, you come you have your uh I guess, whatever you come with, through your family, whether it's what you've learned through there or through the madrasas, etc. And then you're just like, okay, what do I do? You know what I mean? This is my next phase in life. So it is definitely scary. I feel like I kind of went in too young. I should have waited, but like they say, young and naive, and I feel like I was taken advantage of somewhat as well.
Okay, let's
Um,
just slow down for a minute.
yeah,
So look, when you're saying you're too young, right? Maybe you should.
yeah,
My point is, even if you say wait for another 2, 3 years, do you really think that would have changed anything? Because if you have no life experience, you have no
yeah,
experience of a relationship of that magnitude.
right,
Doesn't matter when you did it. You don't. I don't think you'd ever really until you're in the hot seat yourself.
yeah,
It's like driving, isn't it? You say
exactly,
I'll wait till I'm older till I start driving. It's probably harder if the longer you leave it. So
right.
I don't think it would have made it any easier. Once
No,
you're
it's
behind
not.
it, you learn once you're sort of behind the wheel and you turn the engine on. So you
Yeah,
dive in, but do you think it was just that you look back and say that because, let's say, for want of a better word, you got a bit unlucky, hence, or your experience of it wasn't what you expected it to be? So my question then is this, yeah,
yeah,
what were you expecting? What was it? I mean, what was in your mind, in your mind's eye? How did you perceive marriage to be? Did you have this notion of Bollywood where, just you chit chat, you're always laughing, come home, there's
yeah,
a meal ready for you, and you sit there, watch, movies into the night. I mean, what was your perception of it? That's what I'm trying to get at.
yeah.
So,
Honestly, like for me, I didn't really expect anything because it was like, okay, like you're talking about the whole Bollywood thing or whatever. We know that's all fake. And initially, you think, okay, oh, this is kind of cool and stuff like that. But like the level of expectation, it's again, you're in the world of the unknown. You just have no understanding of what's going to happen. Now, growing up, obviously, I was very independent, do my own stuff, even at home and things like that. So everything was kind of not laid out for me. So I had to kind of learn for myself. So the same thing with marriage. I didn't have any expectation. I was just like, just go with it and do what I can, do as best as I can, as a person. So I think that just like anything else, you learn as you go along, right? So
mhm.
yeah, that was that part of it.
Okay, all right. So, okay, look, we dived in, didn't know what to expect, had no expectation. Thought, let me go with the flow, be the best person I can be. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, so what was it not like? What was it not? What was the disappointment, or what went wrong, or what were you not happy with? Was it like, for example, look, there's three types of marriage
Yeah,
breakdowns, as I like to put it. Yeah, on
yeah,
disqualified dads. This is how I try and because there's such a wide spectrum. Look, you either got along, you were both in love. One day you both fell out of love after many, many years, you go your own way. Happens, it's
Yeah.
life, yeah. And
Yeah.
there's you all sort of got along, made it work, but you know, petty arguments, bickering, one day just got out of control and it turned into a big argument and just went your own way.
Yeah.
Or there's number three, there's the emotional mind games. I mean, obviously, look, we're not talking about legit abuse, but there's a lot of men, like I said, suffered from dealing with these personality disorders where women play the victim and they use their emotional intellect to subdue you in a way where you sort of can't say anything. How can I put it? Like the personality disorder, it goes back to the personality disorder where
Yeah.
you feel emotionally subdued and you can't fully express yourself because you're made to feel guilty, or it's like the other person's right, their emotions are right. You have no authority, you have no say, you have no clout, and you feel like a passenger. I'll go back to see,
Mm.
even after all the times I've talked about it, describe, even I get caught myself in
Yeah.
struggling to describe it. Basically, you end up like a passenger and subdued and think, well, I don't feel like I'm being respected. I have no say
Mm.
in this. I'm just a passenger. I just have to do as I'm told and told the line, or I get this sort of emotional abuse. There's that sort
Yeah.
of relationship. Let's just call it abusive,
Mhm.
and that coercive type of abuse, which more men suffer with than women. Was it like one of those three categories? It fell into one of those three categories ultimately.
I mean, I would say yes. I mean, there's definitely a control aspect, and I don't know why. Not all, but some women tend to do that. They want to feel like they have some control over their life, therefore, they project that to the person that they live with. And honestly, that really doesn't help. It
It's
doesn't
very
help.
common. It's common in the
The
Asian community, as you know,
Yeah,
very common. Yeah.
exactly. And that can turn into emotional abuse. It can turn into psychological warfare, basically. And I would say the worst type is the silent, indirect kind of uh, you know, games that occur in a household. So of course, these kind of things, you do experience them. And again, you're meddling with someone that you really don't know what they're coming forth with, what kind of generational trauma have they brought
Mm.
into the household. Because when just like when we're born, we don't have any of that instilled in us, but as we grow up in our households, there's something may have gone on. It could have been a parent that may have passed away. It could have been like abandonment issues. It could
Yeah,
be a
trauma
lot of things. And
will
it's
manifest in certain ways. Yeah.
yeah, and honestly, like for me, um before coming on to this show, I kind of like split this into three different parts. So there's the alienating parent, there's the parent who is being alienated, and then there's the child. So obviously, I know I've kind of gone further into it, but each aspect of those topics, they all come with something, and there's a cause and effect. So I mean, I'll
Yes.
go into that, but I feel like what what was it for myself was just feeling like losing self-control, not being able to be a man again, just like being downtrodden into,
Demasculated to
what, like,
submission.
yeah.
Submission.
So,
Yeah.
it's that thing. Like, what does a man feel like when they are subjected to these kind of conditions? And then
Demasculated. That's the
it's
word. That's how they
the
feel.
convenience, yeah, the convenience of, okay, if someone comes through that door, I want you to protect the family, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, when I want a certain thing, uh you stay quiet, and
Yeah, you basically you just toe the party line and do as you're told. That's
yeah,
the
you
bottom line.
basically
Yeah.
don't, yeah,
You're a
exactly.
cash
So it's
machine, go
definitely a
to work,
control mechanism.
provide, do as you're
Exactly.
told, don't go to your mum and dad's. I sort of make the final decision
Yeah.
indirectly through most the sort of control tactics. You're trying to be a good man. You fall into a narrative, and what you said about the alienating parent, whatnot, these
Yeah.
control tactics automatically are then used through the children, even when you're in
Mhm.
the marriage. So,
Yeah.
let alone when you're out of marriage, what chance do we have, sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah.
So okay, so look, just move along from that. Look, you were
Sure.
experiencing all of this. You're dealing with this generational trauma. You didn't really know. You're trying to make sense of what's going on, why you feel demasculated, why you
Right.
feel like you can't. You don't even know that that's the word. Is demasculated. You just don't feel right. You've got no say. You're being emotionally subdued. How obviously look, and then I presume the relationship ended at some point. If you don't mind me asking, how long were you married for? How long did
About
your
13 years, I'd
13?
say about.
So it's
Yeah.
quite a while. So look, we're not talking like a short marriage. You
Yeah.
gave it a good crack. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh
Look,
yeah.
credit
Yeah.
credit to you. You gave it a good crack. I mean, I think I think to cover that, yeah, because look, I myself was married for about 10 years as we're on the subject. I think that is a podcast there on its own, how we survived that length of time, yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
won't go too much into that on this occasion, but on the next one, maybe we can dive into how you survived with your and came out with your sanity after that long, because 13 years is a
Sure.
long time to be in a
Yeah.
marriage like that where you're subdued. So okay, so look, 13 years on, marriage ended, and then did you just talk a bit about how you felt let down, which then led to you uprooting and moving to the USA. So talk us through into that decision.
So whenever these things happen, whenever there's a breakdown of a marriage, and there is, especially if it's high conflict divorce, and obviously in these kind of cases, what happens is an all-out war. A war begins between both people who have divorced, of course, and what happens is what kind of arsenal are we talking about? The arsenal is the children. They are the
Mm,
weapons of this war, and
absolutely.
it's basically from I would say that's what occurred. It was an all-out war, and again, you're trying to figure out what to do next, and even with that, you're bombarded with false allegations, and so many different, you name it, any possible court order that can be thrown at you, or any sort of application that can be raised against you, it's going to happen. So fathers out there who have been divorced recently, you have to be prepared mentally, physically, emotionally, you name it. You have to be prepared because it's going to be tough. Don't think it's going to be easy because
Yeah.
you're up
So
against a whole judicial system, right?
yeah. So just to some clarity around it, I presume you ended the marriage, right? So
Yeah.
you ended the
I chose to
marriage,
I chose to walk away. Yeah.
right? So you chose to end the marriage,
Hmm.
and then the next thing is you're hit with, let me guess, allegations of abuse. You're saying
Yeah.
allegations of all sorts of abuse, and you were
Yeah,
labeled
the
as the abuser.
non-molestation order, all this
All right,
stuff.
you've had that
Yeah.
as well, yeah. You've had the old
Oh
non-mole as
yeah.
well, yeah. Oh, okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
I think
Yeah,
it's a
standard
standard
process.
route process, and they'll put it all in there, and it's yeah,
No, no, I could tell you, it's a very standard weapon. Like that's the first
exactly.
sidearm they go to is a non-mole. So you chose to end the marriage. How dare you, especially as the subdued party, the party that was being controlled and subdued. Your job was to be a passenger. How dare you speak out against the dictatorship and the regime? They go
Yep.
straight for the sidearm. At first sidearm is the non-mole. You were labeled as the perpetrator and the monster. It is a propaganda. It is almost like a propaganda war. The
Yeah.
propaganda will start straight away. Now, I'm presuming up in a northern town, they quickly start spreading rumors that he is this and he is that and he's X, Y, and Z. Hold on, let me just sort of screen out.
Sure.
I'm gonna, if we get cut off here, I'm gonna resend a link and we'll go again. Yeah. So,
Sure. Oh, time left.
yeah, yeah. It's for some reason it's only 9 minutes. It's only 40 minutes in it now. So, if it's what do you
Yeah.
call it? Yeah, standard. So I'll just send another link. We'll go again. Yeah.
Sure.
Now, what happens is so Northern Town, they'll start spreading propaganda to all the community that he was this, he was that, it's his fault. We chose to end it, all of that. Listen, that's the first thing, his reputation, lies,
Hmm.
propaganda starts. Then they use the system, the non-mol, like I said, standard sidearm, it's a standard weapon that they go to straight away. That's the first of many weapons that is used against you
Yeah.
to demonize you, tarnish you, remove you from the family home, secure finances. secure becoming the resident parent, because then you control the game. Simple as. So you were landed with that straight away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get all that. And obviously, you're literally homeless. What you have to remember is before all this, you've built up for so many years, property, assets, whatever it is, you've built up that. You've worked very hard for that. And then suddenly, within a space of a few months, that is all basically put on the table, and it's all possibly going to be split. And understandable, that's that this is how the standard is, a 50-50 split on whatever is brought to the table that's classed as a marital asset, and rightly so. But there's no need for any of the other things that occur. There really isn't, especially when it comes to the child and how he or she is impacted throughout this process. So honestly, it's really sad that whenever these kind of things occur, the children are forgotten about and what they are going through.
No, but let's talk
And
about the split for a
yeah,
second, yeah? Let's slow down,
sure.
because that, I think that 50-50 is a,
Mhm.
initially now, from what I understand, it's a presumed position now, but that's still a
Yeah,
fantasy. As a man, you'll be lucky to walk away with 20%, especially if
right.
there's children involved. Hence, if you secure the children first,
Mhm.
you get more. If you become resident parent, mothers are favored in family court. And if you become resident parent, hence the non-mole abuse, you get the upper hand straight away, and the chances are you'll secure the property residency and you'll secure more of the pie. So I think we can't skim over that and
Mhm.
say that's understandable. It's a presumed position of 50-50, but all
Presume,
these
yeah.
other tactics are employed
That's fair to say.
to ruin you. And I know guys that walk away with 10%. At 10% at a certain age in life, you're going to walk away with, it's like saying you might as well walk away with nothing. So we
Yeah.
can't skim past that.
Okay.
The child is just a secondary weapon. That's what I'm saying. It's the first sidearm is the non-mole to secure the child. The child itself is the nuclear option that they use to damage you, demonize you the rest of your life,
Hmm.
the rest of the child's life. So before we move on to the child, we'll go to the child and the alienation in the next segment. Let's carry on talking
Sure.
about why it gets like this, why people get nasty. Now, I understand, look, emotions are high, people are upset, there's going to be some friction, but in most cases, if you look, and all the fathers I've spoken to, and some mothers I've spoken to, very handful, very small amount of mothers, but predominantly
Hmm.
it's the women that, especially from the community, the women are well in tune to pick up these weapons straight, boom,
Right.
non-mole, secure child, dad's been
Yeah.
cut out, let's take over, demonize him. Now, I get that to some degree, people are upset and angry, but I think he's being done aggressively in the community.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, families just seem to support whatever their own are doing rather than calling out right or wrong for what it is.
Yeah.
So, can you elaborate, go a bit more into that? Let's talk, let's
Okay.
dissect this a bit more.
Sure. So I think in order to understand what's going on in a person's mind, especially with, the various, I would say, milestones of when once a divorce takes place, it's become official. And, like we talked about, it's an all-out war. Their desire for vengeance, coupled with feelings of anger, frustration, may inhibit them from having more of a moderate view of the relationship between the child and a targeted parent. So this is something, like was there, but it's suddenly gone. And then it's like, right, how dare you make a decision, that affects me and this household? How dare you do that? So again, we have to also understand that this excessive devotion, this emotional manipulation and persuasion techniques also to reinforce, I would say a somewhat dependency of a child. Because remember, you were there, you are not there now. So the dependency has shifted to the child, right? So again, we have to understand what's in order to understand what they are going through, you have to look at their past trauma, abandonment issues, bringing up, all these kind of things. The same trauma that they're bringing is going to go to the child. So, did they have a dysfunctional family? You know, daddy issues, right? That kind of stuff. So, all these things are going to basically be brought forth as, again, a weapon, as well as the child, as you mentioned, the secondary weapon. So, you are up against a lot of things. So, it's very tough to even see what's going on, because it just becomes misted. Your view and your focus, you hit on so many different angles. You're like, okay, where do I start here? And what what I learned also from this is, when that occurs, it's like suddenly a veil is put in front of your children,
Mm.
and it's you can't even feel anymore for them. You can't even see them, obviously, physically. And what happens is that relationship that you had with that child, like, you literally, doted them 24/7 whenever you were at home, has gone. They are also going through a grieving process. Like, where's dad? What's going on? Okay, what kind of conversations are taking place when that child is asking, where's daddy? Right? So this is what we have to look at.
Okay, so how old
How
was your
how
child?
they're affected. Two
How
and a
old
half.
was your child when you last saw him, or when this happened?
Well, when this happened, he was 2.5,
Oh, so it's quite small.
going on
Yeah,
3. Yeah.
yeah, so
And
it's small. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I have really broken contact with him. It's not that great.
Okay, what we do is let's go to a short break.
Hmm.
After the break, we'll go into the journey of you losing contact with your child. Have you survived? How, your experience of the UK family court system was,
Hmm.
and was it because of that and the results you got that you thought maybe, get up and go? So we can maybe dive a little bit more uh, into
Sure.
that after the break.
Sure.
So bear
All
with
right.
us. We are back after a short break.
No problem.
Right, we are back. Faz, let's move along a little bit now. Yeah,
Sure.
we're talking about parental alienation. So
Yep.
you're married 13 years, Northern Town, just a quick recap. So, Northern Town, Blackburn to be precise. Married for 13 years, relationship ends. You're hit with all these allegations, the classic sidearm, as we said, the non-mol. Following on from that, it sounds like you were hit straight away with, you were estranged from your child straight away, which was 2.5, 3 years old at the time. Talk us through that emotional journey and the process and how you dealt with it at the time, and how did it make you feel? How that contributed to your decision to getting up and leaving England.
Yeah.
Just talk us through that, yeah, and I'll just sort of
Yeah.
try and understand.
So, wow, how do I put this?
Take your time, take your time.
It's definitely a dark place for someone like myself. I feel like I was kind of taken, like, fatherhood was snatched from me. That's what I feel like occurred. As bearing in mind, that whenever you're trying to, I guess, you waited all these years to be a father, and you're blessed, and suddenly for that to just get taken away from you. And I might add, or may add, of which wasn't my fault. Um, and then you're taken out of your own home that you worked very hard for, and you're basically homeless, and you're
Mm.
trying to figure out life, even though you're sofa surfing. Your family's wondering what the hell is going on. What are you doing on my sofa?
How
Or
did your
what are you doing in my
family
front
react
room?
to it? I mean, because obviously we live
They
in
were,
northern town.
I would
Was
say,
it new to them? Were they panicked, shocked? Did they help, or was it just they didn't know themselves what to do?
yeah, they
It
didn't
was
know
new
what to do.
experience. So
Yeah, I mean, they didn't know what to do, to be honest, because it is it's something like, I would say, an awkward conversation, like what's going on. I was fighting this myself. I wasn't able to sit down with someone because you can't unless you can resonate with that person. You know, you are going through it yourself. No one's going to understand,
mhm.
about what's been going on because A, you're new to it yourself, and B, like I said, that they're not going through it themselves. So you're basically fighting this battle alone. And like I mentioned, sofa surfing. Sometimes I did sleep in the car because maybe out of shame or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
I
it's
just
hard. Yeah, I get
felt
it.
like
Get
I
it.
didn't know what was going on, and not a lot of people know this. Not a lot of my family members know this. So
Mm.
that was a very difficult time for me, and I actually, during that process, I lost my job as well. So that couldn't have come at a worse time. I was
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
contracting out of London, and yeah, I was told, yeah, well, your job's been outsourced. Sign this. See you later. And I was like,
Oh, so that wasn't related to your performance. It was just bad
oh
timing.
no,
All
no, it
right.
was just bad timing. It was just like, um, I guess there were cheaper staff in Kuala Lumpur
London.
or some other,
Uh,
So
can
it
I just
was,
ask you more about your car? Because look, I have experience of sleeping in a van.
yeah.
As much as you could say as bad as that is, I've got a secure box in the back. It's a big van. I can lay down fully. I've
Oh
got a
man,
fishing
that's
bed. Yeah,
luxury,
mate.
bro.
Oh, it is. It's not that because I used to use it on night shift. I've slept in there before, so I'm actually going to make a video of how I've slept in the van, how I've survived,
Yeah.
what the fishing bed looks like, what to do, how you keep, how you manage. But told me a little bit about like how you slept in the car. You went in the evening, parked up somewhere, what in the back
Yeah.
seat, lay down, or you go get somewhere to eat, sit around in a restaurant, and then eventually when they kick you out, you just go park up somewhere, lay down, and brush your teeth by the
So,
side of the road. I mean, talk us through the
well, for
process
me,
and
I
how
mean,
because
obviously, thank God I had a car as well, because if
okay,
I
what
didn't have
car
a
did you have?
car,
Let's get specific.
it
What
was,
car was it?
oh man, I think it was a Passat. I
Oh, so
think
it's
it
a
was a
big one.
Passat.
The
So
big
it's a
one, or
decent one. It was
yes, it
decent. It was nice.
wasn't an estate,
But
just a normal four door,
just
five
a
door.
normal, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, it was either a Passat or something else before that. It might have been I can't remember. It was okay though. But what I would do is I'd spend most of my time sat in a coffee shop until late as possible, until
In the
they're
evening, yeah.
literally
This is in
kicking
the
you
yeah.
out.
This is in the
Lights,
evening, right? Yeah.
yeah, in the evening, yeah. So they're putting the chairs up. You know that, oh, okay, I need to head to my car now because they're literally kicking me out of the place. So that's what I would do. I would kind of do that, and sometimes, I might go to my parents' house. I'll sit there for a bit. Again, they're oblivious to what's going on.
So no one
Uh,
knows. No one
no,
knows.
no one knows because I didn't. Again, it's honestly, my mom and dad wouldn't probably say anything bad, but it was just that I didn't want to have that awkward conversation, So I thought, no, I need to do this. I'm in this predicament right now. I need to fix this because um no one else is gonna hold my hand. So that was a very dark place. And then obviously there's that wonder of, okay, um my son, is he gonna get his bedtime reading? Is he gonna have his bedtime routine? I had a lot of that
In your
um
mind. On your mind, yeah.
in my mind, a lot of things going on. Is he being fed okay? I didn't really care about myself, to be honest. I just wanted to make sure in my head that, okay, no, he's okay, he's safe, he's under a roof, but it was still a worry and a concern because of, doing it nonstop for the past two
Hmm.
and a half years. Um, so yeah, it was very difficult.
So go
It's
back to
probably
the
one of the
car. So
biggest.
you hung
Yeah,
about at your parents' house. You've got all these thoughts coming at you in your mind.
yeah,
You hang about at coffee shops. I
yeah.
want talk me
And then
through
back to my
how.
car.
So to talk me through your car, you go there, you get in the back seat. I mean, how? Talk me through because look, there might be
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
watching who's homeless.
So
and it's a
basically, I
lonely
would.
place. So we need to put the
It is
mechanisms out there of how to survive, what to do. So just talk us through the
sure.
process of the whole routine. Like you went in, got in your car, parked up. So what did you do? Talk us through the whole thing till the morning.
So I thought to myself, I need to stay warm somehow. Luckily at that time it wasn't really cold. Thank God it wasn't the winter time, because if it was, it would have probably been I don't know, a lot more worse for me. So I would, put the seat as back as possible. I got myself like a thick blanket. I think at one point I had a sleeping bag that was like the thickest of the thickest bag. So I'd kind of do that. And I guess I kind of use those moments to also pause and reflect
No,
that
but hold on.
something,
No, hold
some,
on.
go
Slow
on,
down.
sure,
You're going
sure.
way too fast. So you left
Okay.
your mum's house. You
Yeah,
get in your car. You're in Blackburn. Where do you go? Talk us through the process. You drive to
sure.
a quiet spot or a car park, some
Yeah.
side street. You jump in a driver's seat, get in your sleeping bag, pull your
Just
seat all
put
the way
back,
back,
prop back. Yeah.
and then just lay there and watch the sort of
I
stars and
just look at
then
the
think.
stars basically. But I had a thermos, like you to put
Yeah,
hot tea
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Because remember, and then so it being in the car, it wasn't that long because I
Okay,
couldn't take it.
where did you go though? Because you're in Blackburn. You can't. Someone might look
Just
out the
a
window and say
car
some
park.
geezer.
It was just a
uh,
car park.
So
Like,
any
like
random
one of
car
those.
park somewhere, industrial
Yeah.
estate car park, right? Shopping car park.
No, it wasn't in town centers or anything like that, because over there, you get people coming through. There
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
a
Because
drunk
it's
once
dangerous.
in a while.
There's a
It
danger
is.
element to sleeping in your cars. Well, people don't
Oh yeah.
realize. Yeah, you're slightly you're not on the streets, but you're still exposed in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
car. So when if you park to someone see you sleeping in there, it can be dangerous. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So you
It
just
would be
random.
there. It would be where there's no, like no cars coming past, nothing busy, not much activity. Obviously, I had to make sure that if it was a car park in an industrial space, there's no security driving around, because they're going to
Mhm,
kick you out. So you're kind of left, to just drive around a bit to find a spot. So
mhm.
that happened for a couple of nights. It wasn't that much. And I thought, no, I can't do this. This is too much. So I called one of my friends and I said, look, I'm in a really bad situation. I'm sleeping in my car right now. And, I told him basically everything that had happened. Um, and I said, I can't do it. I can't go back there, and I have nowhere else to go. I do have my parents, but I don't want to lay this on them. They're too old. They're already going through their health conditions. I don't want to be a burden to them. So what I did was I called my friend. I actually used to work with him. He was a really nice guy. And he basically said, look, luckily, there is a house, but obviously it's a rental. So while I was, you know, taking over with the last couple of wages that I had, I said, look, just please, any amount of weeks that I can have, please, I'd appreciate it. So obviously, I stayed at that house, and
So
thank God, the
can I ask
heating
one
worked.
more question? I'll ask
Sure,
one more
sure.
question. Yeah, yeah, because again, you're skimming over details, and this is very important because we don't realize there's a lot of people living like this, and there's
Yeah.
people who have
Yeah,
ended
there
up living
is.
like that today as we speak. We got
Yes.
to put the mechanisms out there. So you laid in your car, you fell asleep, you woke up. Where did you brush your teeth? How did you shower? Did you go to relatives' house and, oh, can I just use shower? Go into some details. I mean, I
Yeah.
had a bottle of
Public
water.
toilets. Back to
I have
Starbucks, bro.
I have a toothbrush with me everywhere I go. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is how people need to survive. So we
Yeah.
got to put the logistics out there. So just woke
Yeah.
up, used to go to the Starbucks or wherever, coffee shop, buy
Yeah.
a coffee, go to the toilets there and brush your teeth there. So you had a toothpaste and toothbrush with you in the car.
Yeah. So what I would do is I had a bag of, certain things like,
Utility bag, yeah.
deodorant, etc. And sometimes what I would do, if it wasn't Starbucks, because I'd end up there anyway, do my typing or whatever, just figuring out what's going on. I'd kind of act like nothing's going on and just go to my parents and just hang there, and they don't know what's happening again.
They're
Obviously, I'm not
oblivious. They're still
shared.
oblivious.
They just think I'm visiting. I'm just
Right,
visiting the
okay.
house as a normal, like. But a few of them caught on because I didn't used to visit that much,
Yeah, yeah.
like previously. So obviously that was a big factor because of this, control aspect. And, like, oh, God forbid you have friends or visit your family,
Mm,
but that's
mm.
another story.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
they weren't used to seeing you
so
that
yeah,
much.
they weren't seeing me. So like, what's going on? And some of my family members were asking me like, is everything all right? Like, what are you doing here? Like,
Mm,
you know what I mean? So and then I kind of broke it to them like what had happened, and they were obviously, I would say, shocked, but I would also say relieved for me as well, because they kind of knew what I was going through, and what kind of person um, you know, she was. All right. So it wasn't a surprise to them that I left.
mm-hmm,
And at the same time, I was starting to see more of my family. And that started giving me that realization that there was something wrong in that marriage. There was something very sinister going on. And a lot of it was controlling, a lot of it was manipulative, and just like I couldn't be my own person.
yeah, you
And
weren't
then I
yourself. Yeah.
started like, even it's really bizarre, Farouk, because even though I look back at it, um, leaving that place, leaving that person, where when you go through something like this with someone, and
Mm.
they've got a hold on you that you can never.
Yes.
And once you've out
Yes.
of that release, bro,
Then you
listen,
realize,
sleeping in a
yeah,
car, sleeping in a car. I'll be honest with you, and even if it was cold, that was a luxury for me because I was not in her presence.
you weren't
That's how bad it
stifled.
was.
You weren't subdued
No,
and stifled, and you were your
exactly.
own man. As bad as the
Yeah,
scenario was, as
yeah,
extreme as the situation was, you were no longer a prisoner in this marriage,
exactly,
and you
exactly.
weren't living under the dictatorship that this
Yeah,
it's a
it's
dictatorship.
exactly.
That's what it is. It is a
It is.
dictatorship, nothing else, nothing less. So you felt that feeling of relief that at least I'm one
Yes.
advantage and bonus to this is I'm not under that. I can
Yeah.
express myself. I can visit my parents without being questioned, hang out with my family without being
Yeah.
made to feel
Yeah.
guilty. That's the classic one. You go to see your mum and dad and you're going home and you think, oh, I better not say anything. If she finds out when to see my mum and dad, I'm just going to have a hard time. So you sort of play it down. Then you think in your head, wonder, hold on,
Checking my
why am
phone as
I?
well.
Yeah,
Checking the phone.
yeah,
Like, okay, is someone gonna text? Are they gonna text? Are they gonna know where I
yeah.
am, my whereabouts,
Where are you? Why are you
what
home?
time I'm
Why?
coming, or
Yeah.
what's. So the thing is that I have to also lay it out here, especially for your audience. There's such a thing as love, right? Don't get me wrong. When love is genuine, it's there. When you care and you are concerned about a person, their whereabouts,
Mm,
and that maybe they might come home a little late or whatever. There is that little banter between married people, but
mm.
there's a very fine line after that where someone is constantly checking up on you, constantly
Control.
wanting to know where the hell you are, constantly trying to figure out, okay,
Yes.
are you 30 minutes from this location to this
Mm.
location? Why were you like 5 minutes late? And
Control.
these are
Control.
the kind of
Establish
things that's
control.
you start to see, and they are red flags,
Yes.
and
If you
we
pop into
have
your
to
mum's
start
house,
talking about
right?
these.
Yes. I
So yeah,
said if you
going back to my mum's house, yeah,
yeah. So if you
I
popped
was
into, for
like,
example, no, but what I'm saying is, for
yeah,
example, you popped into your
sure,
mum's house. Why did you go? What
yeah,
happened? Who was
yeah.
there? What did they say? What did you talk?
Mm-hmm.
They want the ins and outs and details of who
You
you
want a full
spoke to,
report by
how.
the end
Yeah,
of the day.
yeah, like a kid, you got to go and hand in a full report. So
Yeah.
on that, I just want to ask you one more question on that specific. Were you ever allowed out with your own son, or out of her sight with your son, or the environment with you and your son was controlled? You had to be where she said, or she had to know where you were, who you were with, and if you, or were you even allowed to take your son out? Were you allowed to be alone with your son? That's what I'm trying to ask. Or was
I
that
mean,
controlled as well?
honestly, a lot of it was her, like I would say, convenience. If something needed to be done, then of course, like me being this full-time dad, the excitement, I would take him out. I would go to the mall. I would, just basically make sure he's fed, make sure he's taken care of, bring him back home. So that for me was probably, I would say, the highlight of the entire
Also,
thing.
she didn't
So
restrict your movements
no,
with
I
your
don't think
child,
there
right?
was that much. No, but I think it was because we were both new to it as well. So I don't think there was any of that. So I was enjoying that time with him,
Okay,
which
that's
was
fair
really
enough.
good. Yeah,
All right, sorry, yeah. So let's go back to the story now. So you're sort of visiting your mum and dad a lot more,
yeah,
sleeping at a mate's rental, in and out your car, brushing your
yeah,
teeth in Starbucks, all of that. So then obviously your family figured out something's
yeah,
not right, and they
yeah.
knew your marriage generally wasn't great anyway. They knew you were being controlled.
Hmm.
So what happened after that? Just talk us through to the next stage. And obviously you're
Sure.
not seeing your son either at this time, but you feel liberated that you're no longer in a dictatorship. How
Yeah.
did you go from them there to flying out to the USA? Like, just talk us
Yeah.
about that journey. Yeah.
So I think with that, obviously I was coming to an end to a lot of things, especially like with my job and letting people know in the family um, what was going on. Excuse me. So all the like the I guess being in the thick of it, I basically started looking at how I can be of assistance to other people, especially if they've gone this through this kind of stuff. So that was my kind of online journey to just see what's going on out there. Is this a normal thing? And I started looking into like how people control you, psychological abuse, and like mind games, all these kind of things, control. So I started reading up about this because I
Hmm.
thought, what I felt this throughout the whole marriage, literally, being, like they say, under the thumb, or the other person's wearing the pants. And,
Mm.
you hear all these little terms, but really they are red flags. And had I known that these were red flags to look out for, I would have definitely not married her. And
Mm.
that,
But you
that's,
wouldn't have known. The thing is that you wouldn't have known
you
until you
wouldn't
lived
have,
with her.
exactly.
How would you have
Yeah.
known this? This is what I'm saying. These red
So, yeah,
flags, you can't see them until the marriage starts, and then you think it's too late. Nowadays,
exactly.
it's a lot easier to just say, "Listen, I'm not happy. I want to end it." Back then, obviously, presumably when you were married, the word divorce was a taboo. No one ever mentioned it. It was scary to even
No.
think about it. Once you
Yeah.
were in, you were locked in. So you were just a prisoner from the off, thinking, "What the hell's happened here? Like something's going wrong." So look,
Yeah.
it's difficult. Red flags. Like I said, now we know what they are. We can educate the people
We
that are getting
certainly
married
can.
now and the youngsters now. So obviously, but what obviously, so you started studying and looking into narcissism and this sort of personality disorder, this
Yeah. I started
control,
looking into,
and
yeah.
then you started reading and studying, and you realized you were a victim of all of this. And you
Yes.
said you went online trying to help other fathers and
Right.
all in these relationships. So how did that then lead from that to you flying to the US? I mean,
So I met someone, obviously my now wife, I met her. I don't want to go too much into that because
okay.
obviously but it was, for me, it was much needed, especially at that time. And I know, like, you know, looking at what my wife is going through, it was very similar, etc. So we just kind of clicked and started talking about, making it a lot more serious.
Hmm.
So, I made a couple of visits here, and long story short, we got married. But honestly, during that process, it was a very tough time for me, especially with the lack of a relationship I was having with my son.
So you had
It
no
was
contact.
very
You had no
no,
contact with
I
your
did.
son
I
at
did.
that.
Yeah, I mean, initially there was no contact, but obviously, um, with all the proceedings taking place, it was on and off here there, and it was he was confused, totally confused with what's going on. Why are we meeting in a laundrette? Why are we?
Mm.
Why am I picking him up from school and taking him somewhere else and then dropping him off? It was just a whole thing for him. It was just
Mm.
really, really tough for him, and obviously for myself, and so basically when the big decision took place, the reason, and I want to go into that because I know you mentioned, like, how did you get from that to here? I was really struggling to have any sort of contact
Mm.
with my son. And, this 50-50 kind of, um, I would say it didn't really deem as 50-50 because
Mm.
what we see as 50-50 is, you have a pie, right? When you're splitting it, you literally take half.
Mm,
But I feel like with child contact, it doesn't work that way. You literally get probably 20% if you're lucky. So it's
crumbs.
not
Yeah.
50-50, it's 20-80 if my maths are right. But
Mm,
it was very tough to accept that, and I had to accept it. It was like, this is how it is, and that's it.
mm,
And I was like, what am I going to do here? This, and then on top of that, when you're having to deal with someone who doesn't want
toxic.
to co-parent.
It's
So,
toxic. Yeah.
if two people can't co-parent, it's very difficult to have any sort of, whether it's mediation, whether it's trying to make sense of having that relationship with that child. Is very difficult, especially with high conflict
No,
divorces.
but the thing is
Yeah,
this. I think when people say that when two people can't co-parent, I think again this is a false statement.
yeah,
It just needs one person not to want to
yeah.
co-parent. That won't make so. You could want to
You're right.
co-parent, but my point is there is no co-parenting with a narcissist. So when they call it
You're right.
co-parenting,
Agree.
co-parenting means there's two mutual parents who want to co-parent together, then it can work. It just needs one of
Yeah.
them not to play ball. So when I say you can't co-parent, she couldn't. What you mean is she couldn't co-parent, and there is no co-parenting with a narcissist. Period. Sorry, carry
No,
on.
there isn't. So yeah, so basically, it was trying to figure out, like, me suddenly becoming a targeted parent. So I was like, okay, why am I not allowed to see my son? Why am I not allowed to go up the road and just knock on the door and say, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's go to the park or whatever. Just
Exactly.
simple things like that. So,
Exactly.
you know, um, the emotional constriction, this feeling of trying to maintain a relationship,
Hmm.
and there's also a fear in that. So targeted parents, they also may avoid seeking to maintain a relationship with a child for fear of being rejected or hurt,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Because that's the other thing. We have to kind of look more into the mind of why these things occur and why fathers walk away. And
Mm,
targeted parents, they also wants to also discuss not wanting to disrupt or subject their children to conflict. So again, that's
mhm,
another reason why they start saying, "Ah, I can't do this to him. I can't do this to
mm,
this child. So what do I do?" So you really torn between those kind of worlds, and then
mm,
eventually, what some people do is, they're constantly trying to go through the court system. Nothing's working out for them, and they give up because they don't want to impact the child.
mm.
But either way, it's at a loss because the child is then without a parent.
Yes.
So that's the other thing. It's like, and then when you go further into it, like the child, I don't know if you want me to go into that as well.
Yeah,
But
go
that,
into it. The
what
flow.
they also going through, this anxious, fearful.
Now let's
Um,
slow down for a minute. Let's slow down. We'll go
sure,
into that properly. Yes. So let me
sure,
just
sure.
let's move on to that properly so we're not
Okay,
jumping
got it.
all over the place, right? So ultimately, look, I speak to fathers just as you do, and I speak to a lot of fathers where once they've lost contact with that child or they've got no meaningful contact and they're constantly dealing with this over emotional dictator,
Yeah,
narcissist who wants to. If the kids are part of her game, they should, they frankly don't care about the children. They're
right.
happily damage your children. You've got no contact. You've done your best. CMS breathing down your neck. You've become a wage slave, and they look around and think, "This is the country that's done this to me. The laws and systems here are stopping me from seeing my own flesh and blood up the road."
Yeah. Hmm.
Many fathers I speak to saying, like, you know what, take what I got and get out, go somewhere else,
Yeah.
try my luck somewhere else. And I know many fathers that are talking about it, especially now. A lot of guys are saying, oh, England's got a lot of problems, and all of this stuff is now coming out. You see all the stuff
Right.
around family court system and the laws that are very biased against men. A lot of guys saw that move to Dubai and Qatar and Philippines. And I spoke to a guy over there, the Philippines, Malaysia, all that way. He
Yeah.
goes, you could live like a king jack.
Wow.
Why would you want to be here? And he goes, it's not like how people think, where they think this is a shanty town or huts or like, what do you call it? Like what do you got, favela. It's not like that. It's saying it's like
No.
luxury living, like buildings, infrastructure,
Right.
swimming pools, like luxury life daily, and you can work mobile, especially with your line of IT. A lot of guys are opting to get out. So,
Yeah.
it's that now. It's even crossed my mind, to be honest. But yeah, sorry. So
Yeah.
carry on from there. That's crossed my mind as well, because that damage, is painful to hang
It
about.
does.
You don't want to be around. You want to start fresh somewhere else. So
It is. And you
well,
do. You wait. Sorry, go on. Carry on.
yeah, so that's why I can understand why one of the reasons where you might have thought, I've got to get out of here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
now, yeah, let's talk about the alienation, the targeted parent, effects on the targeted parent, which you've touched on,
Yeah.
and the child, the effects of alienation from your research. Obviously, it sounds like you've researched it. So let's put the
Yeah.
information and knowledge out there for some sisters who may be watching, just so they know what this child is going through. And if we can help one child reconnect with their non-resident parent who may happen to be father or a mother, let's get this information out there. Yeah, so go on, give us what you know.
Sure. So I think it's important nowadays to get the full picture of what the alienated child is going through. And in order for us to do that is by basically researching and talking to adults who have been a victim to this. So adults who were alienated from one parent, we need to sit down and start talking to them and then bring to light that, okay, what can you remember from your childhood with what was going on? How is it making you feel now with all that stuff that was going on? Honestly, adults who experienced parental alienation behaviors in childhood, they may be able to provide a rich narrative and offer a
Mm,
deeper understanding, and maintaining factors, all the consequences, and all the things that they went through. So, it is, of course, it's age appropriate, and we have to look at what kind of development and independence, or lack of independence, because remember that parent, the parent who is trying to alienate, the father or the alienated parent, they are basically creating a dependency with that child, and likewise the dependency with it works the other way. So as this occurs, this something like this is very dangerous. So as that person grows up, they want to become their own person. They can't become their own person because they've got this parent who's on an all-out war to make the other parent completely disappear. And it's like, no, you focus on me and you listen to everything that I say, and everything I say goes. So it is also been researched as some sort of a cult. So you look at a cult leader. What does a cult leader do? When they start a cult, what do? They make the
brainwash.
other person believe that everything that they're going to bring forth, whatever teachings, whatever methodologies, it's all a
Control
controlled
tactics.
environment.
Control tactics,
Well,
yeah.
again, so that child is basically, yeah, all these things that are occurring, it can lead them to being very vulnerable. There are a lot of mental health disorders, such as depression, anxiety, eating and feeding disorders, PTSD, and other, psychosomatic disorders. So, I looked at a couple of things, and this is actual research from some of the children, who now they're grown up. So one of the things that came through was shame and guilt. And someone put, there's a lot of blame and guilt. And it's still there. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe this was my fault. Maybe I have done this. Maybe this is wrong. And maybe that was the lies. Maybe this isn't. It's a lot of confusion and within myself, about what to believe and what not to believe. There was also, low self-esteem, feeling worthless and unequal to others. Like, oh,
Mm,
my friend's got a dad, but I don't. Why is that? And then they feel lonely, they feel isolated, they feel helpless. Someone said, my God, I'm still stuck in this mess that someone else created. So
mm,
again, these wars that occur, between, someone who wants to alienate, their child from their targeted parent, this war that occurs, they need to understand what it's doing to the child. And I think the more we bring forth that, the more we start talking to these adults now who were alienated from a parent, grief and loss. I mean, listen to this. Someone wrote, I've spent probably the last year almost straight really grieving and mourning, having to work through this because it was so well hidden. It was so normalized. I was grieving. And he writes, grieving my childhood, grieving the parents. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Grieving the person that I thought I was and who I actually was. So again, abandonment. There's so many abandonment issues that I've come through on this research where, I don't believe anyone's going to stay. So this child is growing up with this abandonment issue, all these like trust issues. And, these are just a few. There's a whole list of stuff that have come through on these research papers where a child is basically, being, you've got to think of it like this. Let's say if there's a vaccine of some sort, and that vaccine, whether it's an antidote or poison, in this case, it's poison. Basically, they are being injected with a serum that is causing him or her pain, and they will carry that for the rest of their lives.
The rest of their life,
and
yes.
This isn't something that goes away. This carries on into their children, because there's also research about this where if a child has been alienated from their parent, they too will do the same thing. If they have a child, they will also pass that on. So these generational cycles
Traumas,
that are coming through, how does one break the cycle? And in order for someone to break the cycle is by understanding what they're actually doing. And that's the difficult part. It's reaching out to these alienating parents and saying, hey, these are the repercussions. Are you willing to accept these for your child? What you're doing to your child, are you willing to accept that? If you are, then are you really a loving parent? You've got to question yourself. But that's the thing, they have to be willing. If they are not willing, then all they are doing is they are accepting the fact that I'm okay with inflicting pain to my own child, and I'm okay with letting them pass that on to the next generation. That's what they're basically saying. So I'm sure they don't want to do that. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that issue that we're having to deal with.
Well, there's a couple of things I'll say on that before we wrap up. Firstly, those suffering from borderline personality disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, only see themselves as the victim. Right. They will not see the child as a victim. The child will form part of their control tactics, and they will use the child for validation for the rest of their life. They will make the child feel guilty. They will make it so the child comes to them for validation at every stepping point in life, and they will seek attention from the child, because the personality disorder, the narcissist, those suffering, they only see themselves as a victim. So you were just part of the game where you were used as someone that would validate the games and that victimhood in their mind. The kids will fall into the trap of those games. They will make the children feel guilty, and obviously along with everything else you've said. So I don't think they do legitimately. Unfortunately, that's the reality of this illness. I pray for all the alienated children out there, and I hope they can get there when these kids grow up. Like I said, look, this is the unknown. We're going to see the full effects of this, unfortunately, in 10, 15 years' time, and we don't know what this looks like. For the Muslim, South Asian community, this is the unknown. We are headed towards unknown territory. Hence, we need to double down our efforts and work on this.
You're right.
Look, Faz,
can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go on.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go on.
And so, let's just hope, and this again is, a child who grew up, who is now an adult. And this is what a message that he put on a board with regards to what's going on. And this is what he writes. Let's hope this is the beginning of it. This is the beginning of us as a society starting to realize that no matter what happens between parents, the children are not weapons that can be used against the other. I just wanted to add that
I want to add one more.
There.
Yes, I want to add one more thing to that, which you just reminded me. That's what I forgot to add. What I forget to add is you've got to understand you're talking about the parent. The parent can only do this because there's a system that allows this. There's a
Yes.
government and a system and a process and the family court system that have allowed this, have monetized this, and are happy to do this, and they still do not recognize parental alienation and the damage it does for you know, the Western countries, especially all the Western countries, for all their advancement technology, for the fact that, you know, they've ruled so many parts of the world. Why do they refuse to acknowledge it? It comes back down to the bigger agenda and maybe the control, the matrix, all of this. You got to, it opens up a whole line of questioning into that. Now, Faz, it was a pleasure, obviously, doing this. Like I said, I'm not a, I prefer more face to face. What I
Of
suggest is
course.
next time you're in
One
England,
day we will, yeah, definitely.
next time
I
you're in
look
England,
forward
because
to it.
like you said, you travel to England a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
I've got a studio now. Hopefully, from the new year, all podcasts I do going forward will be in a studio. So
Awesome.
next time you're in England, come to London.
I
Let's
look
do this
forward
in a
to it.
studio. Yeah, it'll be in the studio, and let's go into this and dissect this properly so we can do all
Sure.
of this a lot more justice.
Sure.
We've got less than a minute
Less than
left.
a
So I
minute.
just want to say, yeah, look, thank you for coming on.
No worries,
We
man.
will
Thank you.
reconnect soon. And just before you go, yeah, whereabouts in America are you exactly? Is it New York, did you say?
No, Ohio. I'm in Ohio.
Ohio. So from
It's
Blackburn to
freezing here,
Ohio.
man.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna call this episode from Blackburn to Ohio.
Peace, man. Love you guys. All
Listen,
right.
mate. Thank you for coming on, and we'll speak soon. Yeah, all the
Thank you.
best.
You too, man.